Javi. Dennis Wolf.
Raging change with the steel. This is the art of the deal. USA is real.
I'm a girl 5.
Iranian people, side by side. My heart. Epic fury. God bless the USA.
Goldie Show.
Humatanam, huchtanam, horashtanam, ohurim mastam. Humatanam, huchtanam, horashtanam, ohurim mastam. Humatanam, huchtanam, horashtanam, ohurim mastam. Humatanam, huchtanam, horashtanam, ohurim mastam.
Well, the U.S. Islamic regime confrontation is entering another dangerous phase. And tonight, we're continuing our deep dive into the escalating crisis surrounding President Trump, Iran, or I should say occupied Iran, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and the Strait of Hormuz. Welcome to part 2 of the Goldie Show's breaking news coverage of the Hormuz crisis. After our first live stream, we're now going to do a deep dive into the growing confrontation surrounding one of the world's most strategically important waterways. And I'm going to break down the latest developments and answer the biggest question. Where does this go next? Because the Strait of Hormuz isn't simply about Iran, or I should say occupied Iran. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most important energy and maritime choke points on Earth. Any serious disruption can affect global shipping, energy markets, American interests, Gulf states, Persian Gulf states, I should say, Israel, Europe, and of course, the wider world economy. So tonight, I'm going to break down the latest developments involving President Trump and occupied Iran, the Islamic regime, US policy towards the Muslim Nazis, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, tanker security, American military power in the region, and the possibility of further escalation. I'm going to separate verified developments from claims, propaganda, speculation, and I'm going to provide my geopolitical analysis as we examine what Washington and Tehran are signaling and what those signals could mean. What is President Trump's strategy? How much pressure is Washington prepared to apply? What options does the United States have if attacks and instability around the Strait of Hormuz continue? And how do we think the Islamic regime occupying Iran and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, also known as the IRGC, will respond? And could a single miscalculation transform this crisis into a much larger confrontation? I'm also going to discuss the implications for Israel, the Persian Gulf countries, global oil supplies, commercial shipping, US national security, and the future of the Islamic regime itself. If you watched part one, you already know how quickly this story is developing. So this is where I'm picking up exactly where we left off, and I'm going to go even deeper into what the latest developments could mean for occupied Iran, the United States, the Middle East, Israel, and of course, the entire world. I'm Goldie Show, former Canadian politician and current geopolitical analyst, and you are watching The Goldie Show. Well, welcome back, everyone, to part two of The Goldie Show, because we're doing a two-part special, I guess. YOLO, You only live once. Happy Saturday, everyone. Before I dive in with the prepared notes that I have for all of you, as always, let me know in the live stream chat where you're tuning in from, and if you're watching the video and you're part of our rewatch crew, let me know in the video description below where you are tuning in from. Durud Patriots, welcome to the Goldie Show once again. I'm Goldie Gamari. So, guys, I'm just going to dive right into this because I have a whole bunch of notes that I want to share with you. And I want to do a deep dive analysis into what exactly is happening between the Islamic regime occupying Iran, the United States, and Israel, and of course, all of the related countries. And guys, just a quick note, I will get to all your questions and comments, but I'll do so after I'm done my analysis. So let's just dive right in. With the negotiations between the Islamic regime occupying Iran and the United States having formally stopped, and with indications that mediation efforts by Qatar and Pakistan have also gone nowhere, and who's surprised by the fact that Qatar and Pakistan, two terrorist countries, are not able to properly mediate, right? So the mediation efforts have gone nowhere. So the war of words between officials of the Islamic regime and the United States is escalating. And if you watched part one of my analysis, I shared a video from Islamic regime state TV where the brother of Larijani, Ali Larijani, he was the top person. Actually, you know what? Let me just share this really quickly. Just a quick reminder, guys, for those who need a quick reminder. So on part one of the Goldie Show, we unlocked this Durka here. So we unlocked Mohammad Larijani. He is the brother of Ali Larijani, who was boom-boomed and sent to hell by the United States and Israel on March 17. He was essentially Khamenei's right-hand man. Okay, so he was the second layer of leadership, essentially. So when President Trump says that, he's gotten rid of the first layer of leaders and the second layer of leaders, Larijani is part of the second layer that were sent to hell where they belong. So on part one of the Goldie Show, where I'm exposing all of this, I shared a video on Durka News Network of Mohammad Larijani. By the way, this guy, Larijani, okay, he is the former or a previous foreign minister. So he used to be in the role of Abbas Araghchi. So there you go, guys. For those of you who are following along on the Boom Boom Durka Jihadi bingo sheet, and of course you're interested in the game of Durka. Game of Durka is basically Game of Thrones, but for the Durkas. This is who I'm referring to. So that was the video that I shared, okay? And that video I shared was a precursor to what I'm talking about right now, which is essentially the war of words, because this Durka had a lot of very, very interesting things to say. You know what? Why don't I play this one more time for you guys? Because this will give you some context. And I've already gone through this in detail and I've explained it and I've translated it in part one. So I'm just going to play the video. You guys can follow along with the subtitles, but this is what I mean when I'm speaking about this war of words.
ما دنبال یک معامله حیات بخش رافع مشکلات به تحقیقات به محاصرات باشه با آمریکا این معقول نیست ممکن نیست feasibilityش هم اصلا قابل اثبات.
Why does he say feasibility? Like, feasibility is not an Iranian word. I don't know. Is he trying to show off the fact that he knows English or something? Because he's like, he literally says feasibility, but he says it with an Iranian accent. The last time I checked, feasibility is not an Iranian word. So why is this Durka speaking English? Wait, let's see here, guys. Sorry, now I'm curious about this. Yeah, imkana sanji. So feasibility is actually imkana sanji. So I don't know why he's saying the word feasibility. That's very bizarre.
ممکن نیست، فیزیبیلیتیش هم اصلا قابل اثبات نیست. ببینید تنگه هرمز یک مثلا چیزی نیست که توی بشقاب کرده باشن به ما تعارف کرده باشن. این غنیمت بزرگ جنگی ماست. این غنیمت جنگی رو باید پاسداری کنیم و این خیلی آثار مهم منطقه‌ای داره، حتی برای امنیت منطقه هم ضروریه. ما تحرک و بازسازی پایگاه رو تحمل نمی کنیم. ممکن است که پیش دستانه عمل کنیم، همونجوری که در اردن کردیم. تجاوز باید غرامت بده، حالا چه شکست بخوره شکست نخوره. بنابراین ما بحث غرامتمون بحث بسیار جدی است و همون چارچوبی که رهبر معظم انقلاب گذاشتن، غرامت مطالبه است، التماسی نیست. اگر خودش میده خسارات رو، اگر نمیده ما ازش به زور میگیریم و اگر نتونستیم به زور بگیریم معادلش رو منهدم میکنیم. ببینید اینا بنچمارک برای مذاکره. ما خونخواهی امام
Guys, so just a quick note here. So we have a lot of Iranian viewers who are tuning in right now. So Omid is writing لعنت و مرگ بر آخوندا, which basically translates to curse and death upon the mullahs. And I agree. لعنت و مرگ بر آخوندا. So guys, Iranians, right? We don't hold back. So there you go. This is what many of our Iranian viewers, especially those inside of occupied Iran, think about the Islamic regime.
شهیدمون در کربلا رو ولکن که نیستیم. اگرم نتونیم عند امام منصور دنبالش میکنیم. پس تا ظهور امام زمان ما دنبال قصیم میریم.
There you go. So that was just the background there. So when I talk about the war of words, this is what I'm referring to, because the Islamic regime, especially on Islamic Regime State TV, which I call Durka News Network. Now, keep in mind, when we go to our Boom Boom Durka Jihad bingo sheet, remember, Islamic Regime State TV, aka Durka News Network, that is one of the most important institutions of the Islamic regime, because that's their main propaganda network, their main propaganda outlet. And again, for some reason, many non-Iranian journalists or, whatever, they actually look at and watch Durka News Network and assume that it's true. And especially for American leftist fake stream media, whenever they are, attacking President Trump and they're like, oh, President Trump doesn't know what he's talking about. The Islamic regime said this. Yeah, that's because the, fake stream media is literally relying on the Durka News Network. And as you guys all know, when it comes to the Islamic regime, if their lips are moving, they are lying. So this is the war of words that I'm referring to, okay? So he's saying that seeking an agreement with the U.S. in order to solve problems it's illogical and impossible. Feasibility cannot be proven. And then he's basically like, the aggressor must pay for their reparations, regardless of whether they have won or lost. Therefore, reparations are very important. Yeah, what about reparations for the Iranian people, you Nazi? But anyway, so reparations are not begged for, they're demanded. And then he's like, if they don't pay, we must force them to. Okay, so here we go. So he's like, if they don't pay, we must force them to pay. So this is the war of words that I'm talking about. Okay, and we're seeing this war of words in various areas and topics, over the Strait of Hormuz, over negotiations, over the ceasefire, and over the fact that both sides are saying they will not back down in the face of the other. We're witnessing a period in which both sides, both the United States and the Islamic regime occupying Iran, are moving toward greater confrontation with one another. And the remarks that President Donald Trump made yesterday regarding the Strait of Hormuz can also be viewed within the framework of this confrontation. This movement toward confrontation and the escalation of the war of words between the Islamic regime occupying Iran and the United States. Now, President Trump said that, he may declare the Strait of Hormuz as U.S. territory. Here's the thing, though. In terms of sovereignty and ownership, the Strait of Hormuz is an area that also contains territorial waters of Iran and Oman. And the Strait of Hormuz is an international strait. Contrary to what the Islamic regime says, that they will not allow any ship to pass through, and the fact that they say it's not an international strait, the Strait of Hormuz is in fact an international strait, and there is a right of passage, provided that the passage is innocent and continuous. And that's according to the international law and 1982 Convention on the Law of the Sea. And guys, if you remember, I spoke about this earlier on part 1. So if we go quickly to this graph here, so as I explained to all of you guys earlier in part 1 of my explanation, the Strait of Hormuz, the passage through the Strait of Hormuz falls under the 1982 Convention on the Law of the Sea. And so passage is allowed as long as it's, for commercial purposes, and it's, it's continuous. So they don't stop anywhere. Okay, so it's international passage. It's part of international law, especially when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz. So President Trump said that America might declare this as, American territory. So going back here, so President Trump did say yesterday that, who knows, maybe they're going to declare this as American territory. But remember, this is what, Mahyar Tusi always says. You have to take President Trump seriously, but not literally. So what does President Trump actually mean when he says that America is going to take over the strait? Because as you can see, this is the boundary, the border line here, and Iran is on this side and Oman is on this side. So what I think President Trump actually means when he says that he's going to declare this as American territory is that he probably means that he's going to be removing the Islamic regime's control over that area. Because otherwise, in terms of sovereignty and ownership, it's 100% within the territorial waters of Iran and Oman, right? So this is the Strait of Hormuz. This is the Strait of Hormuz. Half of it is on the Iran side and half of it is on the Oman side. And keep in mind, this has nothing to do with the Islamic regime. This has belonged to Iran since before the Islamic regime occupied Iran in 1979. So when the Islamic regime says that, the Strait of Hormuz is a spoil of war, this is their, Durka jihadi war of words. And President Trump is responding to them in the language that the Durkas understand, because Durkas don't understand appeasement or civility. Durkas only understand the language of strength. And the territorial boundary of the Strait of Hormuz has absolutely nothing to do with the Islamic regime occupying Iran. It's Iranian territory, right? It would be, to give you guys some context, imagine, during World War II, when Nazi Germany was occupying Germany, right? The borders of Germany, that belonged to Germany before the Nazis took over, right? So Germany's borders had nothing to do with Nazi Germany at the time, just like a generic example there. So that's sort of what I see and how I interpret President Trump's statements. Like, I don't actually think President Trump is going to go in and just, declare the Strait of Hormuz as American territory, because it's nowhere close to the United States. But this is President Trump. When he says peace through strength, this is what he's talking about. He's speaking the language of the Gurkhas. So, and this is, of course, part of the war of words. Now, whether the Islamic regime exists or not, the territorial waters of Iran and Oman are located here. And internationally, the strait is a strait over which the Islamic regime cannot arbitrarily claim that I will decide whether I allow passage or not. So the Islamic regime can't arbitrarily determine that. That's not accepted under international law. But here's the thing, the Islamic regime, they don't respect international law. The Islamic regime doesn't even respect human rights. Remember, we're talking about a terrorist Islamic dictatorship that murdered over 54,000 innocent unarmed Iranians on January 8 and 9 alone. So, of course, they're not going to care about or respect international law. They're just going to say whatever they want to say, because they're literally a bunch of inbred, uneducated savages. They're just Muslim savages. That's what they are. Now, another point here is that one of the Islamic regime officials responded to President Trump and said that the Islamic regime will continue the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, and that it will be closed or opened only under Islamic regime command. So the war of words between both the United States and the Islamic regime over the Strait of Hormuz, as part of the broader war of words, is escalating. And given what I'm seeing today, I have a feeling that it's going to escalate even further in the coming days. Now, another area in which both the United States and the Islamic regime occupying Iran are engaged in a war of words is the economic issue. What kinds of economic pressure the two sides can exert on one another? Now, as we know, just a few days ago, Scott Bessent introduced new economic sanctions against the Islamic regime. And he also said that they're going to introduce new sanctions, the likes of which the Islamic regime has never seen before. Officials of the Islamic regime are repeatedly giving interviews on Durka News Network, and they're saying, we have taken the world economy hostage. We can do this both in the Strait of Hormuz and in the Bab el-Mandab Strait. Now, keep in mind, guys, the Bab el-Mandab Strait, that is a strait on the other side. And I've spoken about this. Let me pull this up. So I've spoken about this before, but let me open this up for you guys. Okay, I want a high, this is not a high quality. Sorry, guys. Let me get like a high quality image here. Okay, here we go. So this is the Strait of Hormuz. This is the Strait of Hormuz over here, okay? So the Persian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz is on this side. And this is the Bab el-Mandab Strait. Okay, so the Bab el-Mandab Strait is pretty much on the other side. Now, this is where the Houthis are, okay? So the Houthis are occupying Yemen the same way that the Islamic regime is occupying Iran. And the Bab el-Mandab Strait, the Houthis are engaging in piracy here to try and prevent Saudi Arabia and other countries from using the Bab el-Mandab Strait to, put out their, ship out oil and things like that. And why is that? That's because, of course, most Persian Gulf countries, they use the Strait of Hormuz, but, including Saudi Arabia. But ever since the conflict here began and the Islamic regime has engaged in piracy and they've shut down the Strait of Hormuz, Saudi Arabia has been, using this side of the country. So there's like one of the cities here. I spoke about this extensively in a previous video. Can't remember which live stream it was, but I spoke extensively about Saudi Arabia and their oil shipments. And I said to all of you guys, keep an eye on the Strait of Mandab, or the Bab el Mandab Strait. That's exactly what's happening right now. And guys, this area here, this area right here is like every single like Muslim jihadi pirate. They're pretty much here, right? So this is where you have like the Somali pirates and the Houthi pirates and every single like Durka, like this area right here is pretty much known for, this area here is known for piracy. That's why Saudi Arabia prefers to send their oil shipments through the Strait of Hormuz. But of course, with the Strait of Hormuz being shut down, Saudi Arabia has tried to go through the Bab el-Mandab Strait, but of course, the Islamic regime has activated their proxies in Yemen, aka the Houthis, and of course, Tusi has reported on the current escalated boom booms between Saudi Arabia and the Houthis. And that's all happening because the Islamic regime has activated the Houthis, which is their jihadi terrorist proxy force occupying Yemen. So IRGC commanders keep saying that they can do, they can take the entire world economy hostage, and they can do this both in the Strait of Hormuz and the Bab el-Mandab Strait. Okay. There's numerous examples of IRGC officials who are saying this. I'm not going to get into their names in detail because that's just too much info. But for example, one person is the political deputy of the political ideological office of the commander-in-chief, who's saying that they're going to shut it down. And of course, I shared this video with you, right? So not just IRGC commanders, but former Islamic regime officials are literally saying that they're going to keep the Strait of Hormuz, right? They're going to keep the Strait of Hormuz. They're going to keep it shut down, right? And this is how they're going to keep the world hostage. So Durkas are continuously saying on Islamic regime TV that they're going to keep it all shut down. Okay. Now, they're also saying things like, we are controlling the straits, we're controlling the waterways, and we're putting pressure on the world economy, and we are doing what we want. So on Islamic regime state TV, Islamic regime officials, IRGC commanders, intelligence officers, whoever, they're going out there, they're beating their chests, and they're saying that the Islamic regime controls the Strait of Hormuz and no one can pass through. Now, what's interesting is that the Americans are also saying that we are preparing to exert greater economic pressure on the Islamic regime. President Trump has said, economically, we will deal a severe blow. And it's not only President Trump who said this. Two other U.S. cabinet officials have also said that soon, during this coming week, which of course begins on Monday, the U.S. Secretary of Energy and the U.S. Treasury Secretary, right, Scott Bessent, has said that we will impose new sanctions against the Islamic regime that will be very, very extensive. So let me pull up Scott Bessent's post here for you guys. Okay. So, where is this? Where is this post? Is this the one? No, wait. Let me find the one that I'm referring to here. Here we go. This is what I'm referring to. See, guys, I always have the receipts. I have to find the receipts, but I have them. So this is what Scott Besson said a few days ago.
And we went from epic fury to economic fury. And at the president's orders, we have raised the level even again. And watch this space for more announcements coming next week, because we are going to apply measures like have never been seen in the history of economic isolation on a country. And we went from epic fury to...
There we go, right? So Scott Besant is saying that the United States went from Operation Epic Fury to Operation Economic Fury. And in the coming days, they're going to impose sanctions, the likes of which the Islamic regime has never seen before.
Economic fury. And at the president's orders, we have raised the level even again. And watch this space for more announcements coming next week, because we are going to apply measures like have never been seen in the history of economic isolation on a country. And
this interview was taken yesterday. Okay, so this is what Scott Besant said yesterday. So this is what I mean when I say that the war of words is escalating, right? The statements are becoming much more, I don't want to say extreme. I mean, on the Islamic regime side, the statements are definitely extreme because they're literally insane Muslim Nazis. But on the American side, the words are becoming very strong, right? And, just listening to Scott Besant and the way he's speaking, it doesn't really look like peace is on the horizon, right? And so this is sort of the sense that I'm getting based on what I'm calling this war of words, okay? Within this framework, now, speaking about the war of words, the first person who spoke was U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright. And he said that Tehran's strategy in attacking ships and trying to close the Strait of Hormuz will ultimately lead to the collapse of the government in Iran, while the Islamic Republic's economy is being strangled. So let me pull up that video for you guys, because that one is also really important. So just want to make sure I have the right one. Where is it? Where's the video here? Is it this one? Wait. Here we go. Okay, I found it. I found the video, guys. Sorry. I have so many tabs open. Oh, wait, sorry. I forgot to share my screen. Oh my gosh, guys. How embarrassing. All right, here you go.
But, Mr. Secretary, you can concede, can't you, that the U.S. doesn't have total control over the Strait of Hormuz?
Look, Iran is attempting to hold the world economy hostage and to terrorize their neighbors. They've built up a giant arsenal. So are they causing difficulties in the region? Absolutely. But they have a losing strategy. At the end, that will lead to the collapse of this regime in Iran as their economy gets strangled. But are they causing some difficulties for their neighbors and the world economy? Absolutely. But their ability to cause difficulties are declining. Our ability to escort and bring products out of that region is growing. They have sort of one card, and it's shrinking in size.
That does not sound like total control, but you have live crew. But Mr. Secretary, you can.
So isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? So Secretary of Energy Chris Wright has said, and this was just a few days ago, he said that the Islamic regime's strategy in attacking ships and trying to close the Strait of Hormuz will ultimately lead to the collapse of the Islamic regime in Iran, while the Islamic regime's economy is being strangled. He said that the Islamic Republic, of course, as you can see, is attempting to take the world economy hostage and terrorize its neighbors, but their ability to do so is declining, while the Americans' ability to escort cargo is increasing. And then, of course, I already spoke about Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who made even harsher remarks. And he said that this coming Monday, or I'm assuming it's Monday, but he said next week. So let's see if it's Monday or which day. But he said that this coming week, a program will be announced involving the heaviest sanctions that can possibly exist against a country. And he said, we will do this against the Islamic regime. And he said, we intend to implement unprecedented economic measures against the Islamic regime beginning this week, measures that will be unprecedented in the history of the economic isolation of a government. And he then continued to explain what it would be. He said it would be a combination of severe economic isolation, the continuation of the blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, and preventing any goods from entering or leaving the ports of the Islamic regime. So let me bring up that full interview as well from Scott Bessent. Is it this one? Wait, sorry guys. Oops. Oh no, I closed it. Because the video that I shared with you, that was only a short clip on Newsmax. I want to see if I can find the full thing. Okay. Here we go. I think this version might be the entire version here. So listen to what he's saying. This is what I'm talking about when I'm saying that the war of words is escalating. And this is, to me, this indicates a precursor to continuing boom-booms at some point.
Last March of 25, President gave me the order to apply maximum pressure to the Iranian regime, and Treasury did. And we've been going after, as you said, their bank accounts, crypto wallets, assets around the world, cutting off payments into both the leadership in the regime and the government itself. As a result, in December of last year, December of 2025, one of the largest banks, or the largest bank in Iran, collapsed. The central bank had to print money, created huge inflation. Then in March this year, or February, we started the kinetic war. The kinetic war ended after several weeks, and we went from epic fury to economic fury. And at the president's orders, we have raised the level even again. And watch this space for more announcements coming next week, because we are going to apply measures like have never been seen in the history of economic isolation on a country. And I think the reason we are succeeding is because it is a 1-2 punch. People say, well, Cuba lasted a long time, Venezuela lasted a long time. Venezuela immediately crumbled when we put the blockade on. So it will be a combination of economic isolation like the world has never seen before, and the continued blockade in the Strait of Hormuz that will keep anything from going in or out of the Iranian ports.
So there you go. And that is supposedly, well, not supposedly, that will happen. I shouldn't say supposedly, because that will happen. And of course, I always trust the United States, right? And if I'm not mistaken right now, if I'm not mistaken, where is President Trump right now? Wow. Okay, so guys, I need to share this. So I'm still waiting for a little bit more news about President Trump, but while we're waiting for news from President Trump, let's get to the other side. So I've shared some videos of course, American officials and what they're saying. But now let's get to the other side. Now, I shared the Durka video earlier. Is he actually in Camp David right now? Some people are saying he's in Camp David, but is he? Oh, wow. Okay, yes. So apparently, I mean, that's what I'm seeing. So apparently President Trump is currently at Camp David. So, wow. Okay. I mean, if that's the case, then my entire analysis regarding the war of words and how the war of words is leading to more potential boom booms, I guess I'm right. There you go, guys. Even when I don't even know where President Trump is, I still know what's going on. How is that? How is that? Anyways, but let me continue. I digress. So, okay, so given that now President Trump is in Camp David, that pretty much makes everything that I'm saying. It just it makes me even more confident in the analysis that I'm giving in that, you know, this current war of words is leading to a kinetic escalation 100%. That's how I see this, if he is actually at Camp David. But I digress. Let me get to some Durka news videos, because, guys, I also want to show you what the Islamic regime is saying on the other side. Now, I've already shared a few videos, but here, let me change the layout for this particular video, because this one has subtitles, so you guys are going to have to follow along. This is Ghalibaf. Now, keep in mind, if we go to our Boom Boom Durka Jihadi bingo sheet, Ghalibaf is here. He is the Speaker of Parliament. He's a former IRGC commander, and you know, he's part of the third tier of leadership. And he's one of the people that President Trump has said is supposedly more moderate and reasonable. Now, like I've said from the beginning, I don't actually believe that President Trump thinks that, you know, Ghalibaf is a normal, moderate, reasonable person. When President Trump says that Ghalibaf is more moderate and reasonable, that's within the Durka scale, right? So basically, Ghalibaf is probably, you know, a little bit more moderate and reasonable than General Skidmark here, or Vahidi, but not by much, right? So, you know, on a 10 out of 10 on the Durka scale, if Vahidi is, let's say, a 10 out of 10 when it comes to how insane they are, Ghalibaf is, you know, a 9.5, Okay, so General Skidmark is a 10 out of 10. Ghalibaf is a 9.5 out of 10. So, is he more moderate and reasonable than General Skidmark? Well, I mean, technically, yes, but not by much, right? So, this is what you guys need to understand when President Trump is saying that someone is more moderate or reasonable, right? It's you have to take it within the context, right? So, there you go. However, let's see what Ghalibaf is saying about the negotiations and about the United States. And the caption here is negotiation means fighting. Okay, so this is Ghalibaf. This is the more moderate and reasonable person supposedly. And yes, Karen, you're absolutely right. If their lips are moving, they're lying. 100%. Right?
همون تصمیمی که ظهر آخرین حمله‌ای که به ضاحیه کرد که مسئول اطلاعات حزب الله با خانواده شهید شد، همونجا متوقف کردیم همه چی رو. گفتم امشب اینطوری شما رو خواهیم زد. اگر رژیم صهیونیستی هم پاسخ بده همه منطقه رو میزنیم، اینطوری هم میزنیم. نتیجه صحبت ما این شد که همون شب محاصره رو برداشتن، نه 30 روز، همون شب. توییتی که ترامپ زد گفت ما امشب برمیداریم، زیرش هم نوشت البته ایرانی‌ها هم تنگه هرمز را باز خواهند کرد. هم وقت ایره من دیدم جلوش گرفتم، گفتم که چیزی ما توافق نداریم. به میانجیا گفتم این توییت اگر الان برداشته نشه میزنیم با همون شدتی که من گفتم. خواهش میکنم برین هیستوریا رو نگاه کنین. 58 دقیقه بعد ترامپ بخش دوم تنگه رو برداشت و نوشت تنگه در چارچوب تفاهمنامه از روز شنبه بر اساس تفاهمنامه. یه عزت اسلام نیست؟ این مذاکره یعنی مبارزه.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay, guys. I have to read out the subtitles because this is wild, right? So again, the war of words, okay? This is what I'm referring to when I talk about the war of words. So what Ghalibaf is saying, okay, so he's basically saying, okay, he says that same day at noon, after the last strike on Dahiyeh, in which Hezbollah's intelligence chief and his family were killed. I mean, whatever, I don't care. A bunch of Hezbollah terrorists are killed. Good, I'm glad. We stopped everything right there. So, okay, so what he's referring to is when Israel sent a bunch of Hezbollah terrorists, back to hell where they belong. And then he says, because Israel attacked Hezbollah, now keep in mind, guys, Hezbollah, they're not Iranian. Hezbollah, they are Arab Muslims from Lebanon, okay? So ask yourselves this question. Why does the Islamic regime, why do they care so much about Hezbollah? That's because the Islamic regime, they're not actually Iranian. The Islamic regime is an Arab occupying invading force, Arab ideology, Arab religion, right? Like nothing about them is Iranian. And they care more about Arab terrorists occupying Lebanon than they do about the Iranian people, right? So here he says, after Israel sent, some Hezbollah terrorists to hell, and then he's like, we stopped everything right there, right? So he's referring to the negotiations between the Islamic regime and the United States. So he's saying after Israel attacked Hezbollah, we, like the Islamic regime, we stopped negotiations with the United States. And then he's like, we told the United States, tonight we will strike you in this way, in this way, in this way. And then he said, and if the Zionist regime responds, because they don't call it Israel, right? They're part of their anti-Jew ideology. They're just literal Jew haters, right? It's guys, anyone who is a Jew hater is very low IQ and is a Durka. So one of the ways you can tell if society is advanced or not is how they treat minorities. And any society that attacks or vilifies Jewish people is a garbage society and a garbage ideology. Just putting it out there. Garbage society, garbage ideology, right? There's literally only 16 million Jews in the world. And yet, there's like 2 billion Muslims, and the vast majority of Muslims are like, death to Israel or whatever. So, just tells you what you need to know about their ideology. Anyway, so then this look, oh my gosh, I just realized where I paused. Look at his face. Look how angry he is. Wait, look at this. Let me zoom in on this. Wow. Look at that. That's like do you see how angry he is when he's speaking about Israel? Like, oh my gosh, these people are insane. Literally insane Durkas. Anyway, so then he continues and he says, we will attack this way and this way and this way. And if the Zionist regime responds, we will strike across the entire region. Look how angry he is. Like, we will strike across the entire region. And then he says, guys, now this is where it gets interesting. So he's apparently recounting the conversation that he had with American negotiators, right? So I'm assuming, I don't know, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner. I don't know if JD Vance was there or not. I have no idea who was there, but Witkoff and Kushner and others. So then he says, the result of our talks was that they lifted the blockade. Okay, so now he's saying that because the Islamic regime threatened to boom the region, the Americans lifted the blockade that very night. They didn't lift the blockade 30 days later. Now, I don't know, guys. Correct me if I'm wrong, but was the blockade actually lifted? Anyways, so he's claiming that the Americans lifted the blockade that very night, not 30 days later. And then, guys, now look at this part. He's saying that same night, Trump posted a tweet saying, we will lift it tonight. And then he added, of course, the Iranians will also reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And then he says, when I saw Trump's tweet, I immediately objected. And I said, we have agreed to nothing. I told the mediators, if this tweet is not changed right now, we will strike. We will strike. Please go back and check the timeline. Wait, so Ghalibaf, guys, Ghalibaf is saying that he forced President Trump to delete his truth, like what he posted on Truth Social, and to change it. Did that happen? Wait, did that actually happen? I don't think that happened. Is my memory not serving me right here? Because if President Trump posted something about the Islamic regime and then he deleted it and then he rewrote it, wouldn't that be all over the news and the media? I've been monitoring President Trump's tweets from the very get-go. I don't recall a time when he changed anything, right? So I don't know, man, right? Do you see what I mean when I tell you that if their lips are moving, they're lying? So now Ghalibaf is blatantly lying on Durka News Network. And Ghalibaf is saying that he forced President Trump to take back his posts on Truth Social and change it. Yeah. He's like, I told the mediators, if this tweet is not changed right now, we will strike. Please go back and check the timeline. And then he says, 58 minutes later, Trump removed the second part about the strait and wrote that the strait would be reopened from Saturday under the memorandum of understanding. And then he's like, isn't this the dignity of Islam? Bloop, right? So he's basically saying, he's like, I forced President Trump to edit and change his Truth Social posts and, praise Islam, right? Do you see how insane these people are? And then he says, guys, this is what you need to understand. Let me make this big so that you guys can see the full image clearly. So this is what you need to understand about the Muslim Nazis, right? These are not normal people, okay? They don't understand appeasement. They don't understand civility. They don't understand diplomacy. All they understand is jihad and fighting, because he's saying this is what negotiation means, fighting. Really? Because I thought that negotiation means, negotiating, using your words to come to a, solution. But for the Muslim Nazis, right, for these 7th century inbred Muslim savages, right, this is their ideology. This is who they are. This is how they think. This is how they operate. And so, the only thing they really understand is boom booms. If you try to speak with them, they view you as a weak person. So there you go. This is who they are. So whenever you see me on, American news or any other media outlet, and I basically say you can't negotiate with the Islamic regime because they're, inbred terrorists and they have a low IQ and all they understand is Islam, right? So look at this. He's like, isn't this the dignity of Islam? This is what negotiation means, fighting, right? So basically what he's saying is that, one of the beautiful things about Islam is that Islam is about fighting, right? So again, they're engaging in jihad. They're engaging in jihad, and this is part of their religion. This is part of their ideology. This is part of their book, right? Like this is what these people worship. They worship fighting. They worship lying. They worship rape, pedophilia, right? Like all that kind of stuff. That's literally within their religion and their ideology. And they think that, this is dignified, right? They think it's dignified to engage in jihad because, they're fighting for their demon Arab dead warlord and, their demon god and whatever, right? So it's, guys, I'm not the one who's saying it. He's the one that's saying it, right? Like the captions are right there. The captions are right there. He's like, isn't this the dignity of Islam? Negotiation means fighting. Blah! Right? Do you see the kind of garbage jihadi nonsense that we Iranians have been dealing with? Anyways, now that I've read the subtitles for you guys, let's listen to this one more time, because this is what I'm talking about when I say the war of words is escalating, especially on the Durka side. Oh wait, I muted it. Let me unmute this garbage guy. And again, guys, if you need a quick reminder, this is Ghalibaf. So those who are keeping track of the Boom Boom Bingo sheet, this is Ghalibaf here. He is the current Speaker of Parliament, former IRGC general, former police chief, 100% war criminal, and Muslim Nazi. All right.
همون تصمیمی که زور آخرین حمله‌ای که به زاهیه کرد که مسئول اطلاعات حزب الله با خانواده شهید شد، همونجا متوقف کردیم همه چی رو. گفتم امشب اینطوری شما رو خواهیم زد. اگر رژیم صهیونیستی هم پاسخ بده همه منطقه رو میزنیم، اینطوری هم میزنیم. نتیجه صحبت ما این شد که همون شب محاصره رو برداشتن، نه 30 روز، همون شب. توییتی که ترامپ زد گفت ما امشب برمیداریم، زیرش هم نوشت البته ایرانی‌ها هم تنگه هرمز را باز خواهند کرد. هم وقت ایره من دیدم
Oh, someone's asking about the ring he wears. I don't know. That's some sort of like Allahu Akbar jihad ring. It's some sort of Allahu Akbar jihad ring that they all wear. I don't know. It's like, I don't know. It's like the ring that Soleimani wore. It's like some jihad ring or something. I don't know.
روشی گرفتم گفتم که این چیزی ما توافق نداریم به میانجیا گفتم این توییت اگر الان برداشته نشه میزنیم با همون شدتی که من گفتم. خواهش میکنم برین هیستوریا رو نگاه کنین. 58 دقیقه بعد ترامپ بخش دوم تنگه رو برداشت و نوشت تنگه در چارچوب تفاهمنامه از روز شنبه بر اساس تفاهمنامه. یه عزت اسلام نیست؟ این مذاکره یعنی مبارزه.
There you go. Those are the Muslim Nazi Durkas. Now, guys, I see a super chat here from one of our Iranian viewers. Normally, I leave super chats for the end of the show, but I just wanted to share this one really quickly. So one of our viewers, QMars, says, Javid Shah. So, Durud bar shoma, Javid Shah, payande Iran, Javid Shah, Javid Shah, Javid Shah. So there you guys go. If you're wondering, for all of our non-Iranian viewers, if you're wondering what the super chat says, it says Javid Shah. And of course, all of you already know what Javid Shah means. So there you go. That was the, just another example of how the Islamic regime is not only, escalating the war of words, but they're also continuing their attacks on cargo ships in the Strait of Hormuz. A couple of days ago, as you've probably already heard, the Islamic regime attacked 2 Emirati oil tankers, and yesterday another Emirati oil tanker was attacked. And the Islamic regime's attacks are focused on specifically Saudi Arabian and Emirati oil tankers. Now, the reason that the Islamic regime attacks Emirati tankers in the Persian Gulf and it attacks Saudi tankers in the Bab el-Mandab Strait with the assistance of the Houthis, that's because they're focused on what they believe are, their enemies. And guys, keep this in mind. Even though the Saudis, remember, the Saudis sent a delegation to Khamenei's funeral. Okay, remember that? And when my friend from Kuwait, Jassim, was here, we spoke about this. So this is what I mean when I say that there's no honor amongst Durkas. Okay, there's no honor amongst Durkas. It's the wildest thing. It's the wildest thing. Look at this. So, right? The Saudis, guys, the Saudis literally. Oh, is there no audio? Oh no, this one has no audio. Anyways, but we don't need audio. Anyway, so these are the Saudis, okay? So during Khamenei's funeral, Saudi Arabia literally sent a delegation to, oh my gosh, guys, we have trolls in the chat. Oh no, IRGC is winning the war. Okay. Yes, guys, Hubba Bubba 15 is correct. And guys, I just have to delete my channel, pack it up, and guys, I'm gonna go home, right? Like, that's it. I'm done. My channel is done because Hubba Bubba, random troll. By the way, Hubba Bubba had to wait 20 minutes because, in order to comment in the live stream, you have to, subscribe, and then you have to wait 20 minutes. So this troll literally waited 20 minutes at least just so they could post. But yeah, Americans, pack it up. It's over, right? my analysis is meaningless because Hubba Bubba is saying that the Islamic regime is winning the war. Yeah, there you go. That's the level of idiocy that we have to deal with here. Anyway, so these are the Saudis, right? So the Saudis sent a delegation to Khamenei's funeral. Yeah, now the Islamic regime, they're attacking Saudi cargo ships, right? So I don't even know how to describe this, or I mean, I guess the only way to explain this is that at the end of the day, you know, when it comes to Durka infighting, you know, they like to keep it in the family. So even though the Islamic regime has literally sent missiles to Saudi Arabia and they're attacking Saudi cargo ships, the Saudis still sent a delegation to pay their respects to, you know, the dead supreme dictator Khamenei. And guys, you should go back and watch Iran Revolution Live when I had Jassim here, because he actually explained the significance of like the Quranic verse that the Islamic regime played when the Saudis showed up. And the Quranic verse it's like some sort of Shia verse, and the Shia verse is basically like the unbelievers came to pay their respects to like the true believers or something. And because Saudis are Sunni and, you know, the Islamic regime are Shia, right? There's like Durka infighting, right? Because the Sunnis believe that, you know, one dead Arab warlord followed Muhammad, and then the Shia believe that like some other dead Arab warlord was the next in line. I mean, I don't know, right? It's just like the Durka infighting. But so even when the Saudis went to go pay their respects to a dead dead terrorist, even then they were insulted. But aside from that, right, guys? So even though the Saudis still went to Khamenei's funeral, right? The Islamic regime is still attacking Saudi cargo ships, right? Now, there's a reason that the Islamic regime is attacking Persian Gulf and Middle Eastern countries. So the reason that the Islamic regime is focusing attacks against Emirati and Saudi oil tankers, of course, the UAE in the Persian Gulf and Saudi Arabia in the Red Sea. Now, let me pull up my Bab al-Mandab map again for you guys, right? So I shared this with you earlier, but just in case you need a quick reminder. So this is a Bab al-Mandab, and essentially the Islamic regime, so they're attacking UAE cargo ships on this side, you know, the Strait of Hormuz, but they're also attacking Saudi cargo ships through the Bab al-Mandab via the Houthis, right? Because the Houthis are one of the Islamic terrorist proxy groups of the Islamic regime, and they're occupying like the western part of Yemen. So this, whenever you hear about Saudi cargo ships being attacked, that's because it's through here and it's done via the Houthis. And of course, here is where you hear about the Emirati cargo ships. You don't hear too much about the Bab al-Mandab attacks, just because, you know, when it comes to the news and the media, right? Like everyone's focusing on the Strait of Hormuz. Not a lot of people are focusing on the Bab al-Mandab Strait, but Saudi ships are being attacked through here. Now, keep in mind, before this whole conflict, Saudi, their main port for exporting oil was on the Persian Gulf side. So they would typically export oil through the Persian Gulf. When the conflict happened, they started exporting from this side. You know, let me pull up that map again. I know I shared this a while ago. Yeah, it's Ras Tanura on the Persian Gulf side, and then Yanbu on the Red Sea. So here we go. Let me pull this up for you guys. Sorry, I'm not as up to date on my Saudi geography, so that's why I just need a quick check. But here you go. So this is what I'm talking about here, okay? So when it comes to Saudi Arabia, Ras Tanura is their main port city for exporting oil. And of course, they go through the Persian Gulf and through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the second big city is Yanbu, and Yanbu is on the Red Sea side. So, and then of course, Yanbu and Ras Tanura are connected not only by a pipeline, but there's also like a railroad or something. So it's like easy and fast transportation. So ever since the conflict started, the Saudis, instead of exporting their oil through the Persian Gulf, through the main port, which is Ras Tanura, they've been going through Yanbu instead. However, now, of course, Yanbu, right, that leads into the Strait of Bab el-Mandab. So going back to the Bab el-Mandab map, this one here. So again, like Ras Tanura is somewhere over here. And what's the other city called? Yanbu. Yanbu is on this side, okay? So you hear a lot about the Islamic regime directly attacking, the cargo ships through the Strait of Hormuz, but you don't hear a lot about the mainstream media talking about the Houthis attacking Saudi cargo ships in the Bab el-Mandab. And if you're wondering, well, why is it that the Houthis are attacking Saudi cargo ships going through the Bab el-Mandab Strait? It's because the Houthis are a proxy of the Islamic regime. So this is how the Islamic regime is right now holding both the UAE and Saudi Arabia hostage, right? Because they're acting directly in the Strait of Hormuz, and then of course their proxies are acting here through the Bab el-Mandab Strait. And the Islamic regime has a lot of terrorist proxy groups, right? So the Houthis are in Yemen. Of course, in Lebanon, occupied Lebanon, you have the Hezbollah, and Hezbollah is attacking Israel. So guys, keep in mind, whenever you hear about Hezbollah attacking Israel, that's essentially the Islamic regime, because Hezbollah and the Islamic regime are one and the same. And Hezbollah is actually part of the Islamic regime, an official part of the Islamic regime. But I don't know why. I don't know why people or international pundits don't seem to make that connection, even though Hezbollah is literally 100% funded by the Islamic regime. And there you go. And then, of course, in Iraq, you have the Hashd al-Shabi, and you have the Kataib Hezbollah, and a bunch of other militia groups. And then, of course, in Israel itself, you have Hamas, and you have the Palestine Islamic Jihad, and I don't know, all these like Durka terrorist groups in Israel as well. Not necessarily directly connected, but they do get money and they are funded by the Islamic regime, because even though they're Sunni, the Islamic regime does not care, because the Islamic regime cares more about the destruction of Israel. So the strategy of the Muslim Nazis when it comes to the Arab terrorists in Israel is let them destroy Israel first, and then we can convert them after or get rid of them, right? Because again, when it comes to the Durkas, yes, there is infighting amongst the Durkas. However, they like to fight within their own league. And so when it comes to non-Muslims, they will unite, for Islam and Muhammad and Allah and jihad and whatever. But then essentially, like, if they're ever successful, then, then they would start infighting once again. But there you go. So that's oil tankers being hit both on the Strait of Hormuz side and the Bab el-Mandab Strait side, which is effectively cutting off Saudi Arabia and the Saudis' ability to export oil from both sides of the country. Okay. Now, not only is the Islamic regime attacking Saudi Arabia and UAE cargo ships, but they're also continuing their drone and aerial attacks against Kuwait and Bahrain. And of course, if we go back to our map, this is Kuwait over here, and Bahrain is that tiny little island. Now, there are also attacks against Qatari oil tankers or ships carrying Qatari gas, but they are limited. There's also some small attacks against Oman, but they're also limited. So basically, when it comes to the Islamic regime's strategy, when it comes to attacking the Persian Gulf countries, they can be divided into three categories. Attacks against the Emirati and Saudi tankers in the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf are very extensive. Aerial and drone attacks are concentrated on Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan. There are also some isolated attacks against Qatar and isolated attacks against Oman. Now, there's another important point regarding these attacks and the Islamic regime's strategy. These attacks constitute violations of United Nations resolutions. In other words, they further worsen the international environment against the Islamic regime. Now, it's true that during the wars of the past 10 years, especially, for example, in Ukraine, the Gaza conflict and the war involving the Islamic regime, the United States and Israel, the United Nations has not been a serious actor. Generally speaking, none of the sides pay much attention to the United Nations anymore. And this is why I've always said from the beginning that the United Nations is a garbage organization. In fact, if you recall, I actually had an interview a while ago on, I think it was Newsmax, I can't remember, but I think I just basically flat out said the UN is a garbage organization. Let's see, where is it? There you go, right here, this one.
About the military strikes in Iran. So, Goldie, the United Nations Secretary General is worried about the military strikes in Iran. Take a listen to what he's saying here about it.
The Secretary General remains deeply concerned by the continuing military escalation between Iran and the United States of America. He's particularly concerned about attacks on civilian infrastructure in Iran and across the region. Such attacks are unacceptable.
So that was the deputy spokesperson. Now, he doubled down on saying that diplomatic efforts will bring peace, not military action. I mean, doesn't the UN realize that the administration has tried that already? It doesn't seem to be working. And is it fair to call these attacks unacceptable?
Well, I think the United Nations is actually a garbage organization. It's basically just a scam to promote communism and terrorism around the world.
There you go. So, the United Nations is a garbage organization. And I stand by what I said. I said what I said. It is a garbage organization. So, going back to my analysis now, even though both sides are not really paying attention to, UN conventions or anything like that, it doesn't necessarily mean that the United Nations has no influence whatsoever. The UN has issued Resolution 2817. It condemns attacks on ships. It emphasizes freedom of navigation. And these attacks that the Islamic regime and the Houthis carry out against ships in the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea are in fact violations of Resolution 2817, which says that ships must not be targeted and freedom of navigation must be ensured. So in its own way, this places pressure on the Islamic regime and the Houthis, and this is not without effect. Because even though the United Nations in and of itself is pretty much useless, the fact that these resolutions exist, this gives countries like the United States and Israel the legal backing that they need to do whatever it is that they need to do and will do in the future. Okay, so that's sort of the Islamic regime versus the United States on the outside. But now let's turn to inside of Iran very briefly. Because inside of occupied Iran, Pezeshkian, and Pezeshkian is the, let me pull this up for you guys once again as a quick reminder. So Pezeshkian is the so-called, the puppet president, right? He's the so-called Durka president. So Pezeshkian has openly acknowledged that the economic situation is not good. He's acknowledged that high prices exist, but he then tried to justify that by saying that inflation is natural. Well, let me tell you something. Inflation is not natural. Inflation is not natural. And the reason that inflation is happening is because the Islamic regime has implemented garbage policies, right? The Islamic regime, they're not a legitimate, serious government. They're not educated. They have no idea what's going on. They govern the country through the Quran and Islam and jihad and whatever, right? So obviously, when it comes to the economy, they don't know anything. And in fact, it's 47 years worth of the Islamic regime's garbage economic policies that have caused prices to rise. And of course, Pezeshkian, the Durka puppet president of the Islamic regime, says that this is natural. But it's not natural. It's the farthest thing from natural. There could have been a better government that did not do this. I mean, just look at how Iran was before 1979 under the Shah of Iran at the time, Shahanshah Aryamer. Look at how Iran was. Remember, guys, prior to 1979, the value of the rial to $1 US, it was 70 rials to $1 US. Today, that number is closer to 2 million, right? 2 million rials to $1 US. That's the current exchange rate. Back when the Shah was in power in 1979, it was 70 rials to the US dollar. So that's, that's Islam for you. That's Islam. And this is exactly why occupied Iran's situation is the way it is. Now, the president, the puppet president, Pezeshkian, has said that, the Islamic regime's revenues have declined sharply and we cannot sell oil either. So this is really interesting because on one hand, the Islamic regime, when it comes to English media outlets or on English social media, they're claiming that they control the strait and the strait is open and they're, sending their cargo ships out and they're selling oil. However, when it comes to the Islamic regime side and when they're speaking to themselves or amongst themselves in Persian, they're openly acknowledging and admitting that not only have their revenues dropped, but they can't sell oil, right? And that's effectively due to the US naval blockade. So that's sort of what's happening within the Islamic regime right now. And, there's sort of like two different pathways here. So now we're going to get into the game of Durka a little bit, right? You have people who are trying to accommodate and people who are more confrontational. So this is where I've spoken about the pragmatists and the hardliners, right? So you have the pragmatists like, Ghalibaf. Oh, wait, let me pull up my Durka Boom Boom Jihadi bingo sheet for you guys. So you have, some pragmatists like Ghalibaf or IRGC, Pezeshkian, not as much. He's just a puppet, right? But mostly Ghalibaf, right? They're basically trying to come to some sort of understanding. Even though on Durka News Network, they'll openly say that, oh, we don't want ceasefire, blah, blah, blah. They actually do. They secretly want a ceasefire. They secretly want some sort of agreement because they see the writing on the wall and they're trying to figure out a way for the Islamic regime to survive. Now, however, the confrontationists, okay, and guys, just as a quick reminder, oh no, where'd my notes go? Guys, I have to bring up my notes again, sorry. Guys, I've done so much research for you, now my notes left. What's happening here? Wait, guys. It's not working. Oh my gosh. I mean, I know what I was going to say, but I mean, I was basically going to say the confrontationists are the Durkas, right? The confrontationists are General Skidmark here. So on one hand, you have the pragmatists who are trying to they're trying to appease secretly behind the scenes, but of course in public they'll make these insane statements and videos. Like I shared the one from Ghalibaf, where Ghalibaf is claiming that apparently he threatened President Trump to change his Truth Social post. Otherwise, the Islamic regime was going to attack the United States. But secretly behind the scenes, they're desperate for a deal because they see that the writing is on the wall and they see that the Islamic regime is collapsing internally and they don't want that. However, this is where the game of Durka comes in and, the Game of Thrones essentially and the different factions. So you have someone like Vahidi, General Skidmark, and keep in mind now General Skidmark, he is now being advised by this Durka here, Naqdi. And I actually shared this Durka's interview a couple of days ago. And remember, that was the PBS interview, the garbage PBS interview. And he's just spouting lies, right? And he basically, he openly said in that PBS interview that when they say death to America, they literally mean that they, they're wishing death upon the United States government and President Trump and his family and his administration. So these are sort of the two camps, right? You got the pragmatists and the insane Durka jihadis, right? And as you can see, yeah, both of them have skid marks, right? So not only does this General Skidmark have a skid mark, but his new supreme advisor also has a skid mark. So just, how insane these people are, because this confrontation is escalating. And I honestly, legitimately don't see how this is going to get to any sort of peace deal. Like, I don't see it. I don't see a peace deal. Right? Given everything that I've said and everything that I've shown you guys, I mean, you tell me, do you actually think that with what's happening right now, there's going to be some sort of peace deal or treaty? Like, I don't see it. None of the signs point to any sort of peace, right? And what was really interesting, and I want to go back to this because this was a very, very important message from Energy Secretary Chris Wright. And, we haven't really spoken a lot about Chris Wright, because he, even if he's been a player in the current confrontation between the Islamic regime and the United States, he hasn't been like upfront, right? He hasn't been like Marco Rubio or Senator Lindsey Graham, may he rest in peace, or Pete Hegseth, or Admiral Brad Cooper, or even Scott Bessent or others, right? But listen to what he said. And what's really interesting is that this interview came out before what Scott Bessent said yesterday.
But Mr. Secretary, you can concede, can't you, that the U.S. doesn't have total control over the Strait of Hormuz?
Look, Iran is attempting to hold the world economy hostage and to terrorize their neighbors. They've built up a giant arsenal. So are they causing difficulties in the region? Absolutely. But they have a losing strategy. At the end, that will lead to the collapse of this regime in Iran as their economy gets strangled.
Did you catch that? So he's saying that as the economy gets strangled, that will lead to the collapse of the Islamic regime. Now, so what's interesting about what Chris Wright is saying here is that when you look at history, economic failure played a massive role in the collapse of the USSR. But it wasn't just the economic failure alone. It was, together with political and social problems. And now we're seeing the exact same thing in occupied Iran, right? So we're seeing this economic chokehold, very, very similar to the situation in the USSR. Because it wasn't just, people, of course, there were political and social issues, but what really got everything going was a combination. And the most important factor was the economic collapse. And in fact, America didn't even play a part in the dissolution of the USSR. It was an internal thing, right? So kind of seems like we're starting to see that same strategy being used against the Islamic regime. Because we already know that there is political unrest. We already know that there is social unrest. The economy has pretty much gone to hell. And now what Chris Wright is saying here about how the economy will lead to the collapse of the Islamic regime, right? Let's listen to that again.
So are they causing difficulties in the region? Absolutely. But they have a losing strategy. At the end, that will lead to the collapse of this regime in Iran as their economy gets strangled.
Okay. And then we have what Scott Bessent said yesterday.
Last March of 25, President gave me the order to apply maximum pressure to the Iranian regime, and Treasury did. And we've been going after, as you said, their bank accounts, crypto wallets, assets around the world, cutting off payments into both the leadership in the regime and the government itself. As a result, in December of last year, December of 2025, one of the largest banks, or the largest bank in Iran, collapsed. The central bank had to print money, created huge inflation. Then in March this year, or February, we started the kinetic war. The kinetic war ended after several weeks, and we went from epic fury to economic fury. And at the president's orders, we have raised the level even again. And watch this space for more announcements coming next week, because we are going to apply measures like have never been seen in the history of economic isolation on a country. And I think the reason we are succeeding is because it is a 1-2 punch. People say, well, Cuba lasted a long time, Venezuela lasted a long time. Venezuela immediately crumbled when we put the blockade on. So it will be a combination of economic isolation like the world has never seen before, and the continued blockade in the Strait of Hormuz that will keep anything from going in or out of the Iranian ports.
Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? So, anyone who says, and let me give you, let me get to your questions and comments, and then of course, I'll give you my final thoughts on what's happening with everything that's going on. So of course, Coffee Cup Pepsi says, love from New Zealand. Thank you. Tom for Life says, thanks, Goldie. Trump is in Camp David today. Wow. Okay, guys, that just that takes it to the next level, doesn't it? That certainly takes it to the next level. Pretty sure President Trump isn't Camp David just because, he wants to take a day off. Jeremy says Trump is out for blood. Possibly. I don't disagree with that necessarily. Of course, one of our Iranian viewers said Javid Shah durud bar shama. Daniel Mart says, I'm cautiously optimistic of the Abraham Accords. How likely is it that future administrations use it to unite Arabs against Israel? You might be cautiously optimistic. I'm not, because President Trump has already put Saudi Arabia and Qatar on notice that they have to sign the Abraham Accords, and they still haven't done so. Guys, I guarantee you Saudi Arabia will never sign the Abraham Accords. I don't understand how likely is it that future administrations use it to unite Arabs against Israel? That part I don't understand. The Abraham Accords aren't meant to unite Arabs against Israel. The Abraham Accords are a peace deal. So I'm not sure if I understand the second part of your question. The majority of the Arab countries are not supporting Israel as it is, except for those who've already signed on to the Abraham Accords. That I believe is UAE and Bahrain. Minor Dine, you should invite Scotty B on to explain inflation. He could not resist that opportunity. Very great suggestion. I don't know. I don't actually know if the U.S. Secretary, Treasury Secretary, would be interested in coming on my dinky little YouTube channel on the Goldie Show, but who knows? Maybe he would. Not a bad suggestion. I will reach out to him, his office, and see what they say. Okay, so that was pretty much it for your questions and comments. Guys, I want to share one final video from General Jack Keane, and then I'm going to give you my final thoughts on what I think is happening and what we can expect in the upcoming few weeks. Of course, this is based on what I'm seeing right now. Anything can change at any point in time based on, what people say or do.
With two issues on the table, Strait of Hormuz opening up and also the nuclear enterprise, and that's being kicked down the road for negotiations. I think at times we underestimate where the Iranians really are in terms of where their head is. And we have a tendency to look at them in terms of what is the impact of the blockade doing to the economy? How much money are they losing every single day, every single month? Where is their currency? in terms of its value. What's their inflation rate? These are all norms that we look at ourselves, and we look at them and say, my, this is absolutely devastating to them. At some point, you know, they're going to fold their hand. But you got to understand where this regime is really coming from, the people who are running it. They have an ideology that they're holding to. They absolutely believe right now that they have the upper hand. I know there's people that don't want to admit that, but that's where the Iranians are. I'm not saying that's where they are. I don't believe it myself.
I mean, he's not wrong, guys. I've literally shared videos with you today that is pretty much talking about this, right? And the Durkas are literally saying that they have the upper hand on the United States. Remember, that was this video that I shared earlier. And this Durka, he's the brother of Ali Larijani. And, you know, he basically says the aggressor must pay reparations. And, you know, like, so yeah, like the Islamic regime is literally acting as if they have the upper hand, even though they don't, because they're
into. They absolutely believe right now that they have the upper hand.
Yeah.
I know there's people that don't want to admit that, but that's where the Iranians are. I'm not saying that's where they are. I don't believe it myself, but it's irrelevant. They believe it. They believe the Strait of Hormuz is a strategic asset, and they are not going to bargain that away. Even if they gave in to the concessions we want them to make over the straits, we already have evidence that they won't comply with it, because 2 presidents signed the deal, and days later, the Iranians didn't comply with it. So where they are, they will not give up the Straits of Hormuz unless we take it back by force. No amount of economic pressure on them, I think, will bend them to do that. They don't care.
So the guys, that's really important. When he says that no amount of economic pressure will bend them, it's true. They don't care, right? The Islamic regime, they don't care about the Iranian people, right? They don't care that 70% of Iranians live below the poverty line. Remember, this is the same brutal Islamic dictatorship that mass murdered over 54,000 innocent unarmed Iranians on January 8 and 9. They don't view us Iranians as you know, civilians or citizens. They view us as cattle. They use us as hostages, as human shields. Our lives are meaningless to them because we are not part of their jihad. We're not part of their ummah. They will send like hundreds of millions of dollars to Hezbollah and, you know, their Hezbollah jihadi families in southern Lebanon, right? So Hezbollah and you know, Hezbollah families get a lot of money, but that's all stolen money of the Iranian people, and Iranians don't see any of that. So General Keane is absolutely right on this part. The economic pressure will not actually force the Islamic regime to change its tactics because they don't care about the Iranian people. So this is where, you know, it's important to, when I speak about this sort of economic pressure, what is the purpose of the economic pressure, right? Because if the purpose of the economic pressure is to change the strategy of the Islamic regime, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. The Islamic regime, they're already filthy rich. They're already worth millions, if not billions of dollars. They've literally had 47 years to steal Iran's wealth and put it in their own pockets. And they've been doing that for 47 years. So they already live lavish, luxurious lives. They don't want for anything. It's the Iranian people. And, you know, yesterday on Iran Revolution Live, I showed a video of a lineup where, you know, this guy got in line at 3:30 a.m. in the morning to put 15 liters of gasoline in his car. And the lineup was just, you know, all going all the way. Like you couldn't see the front of the line or the end of the line. That's how long it was. And, you know, at 7:30 a.m., he still hadn't moved. So that's essentially the why. And, you know, I agree with General Keane here when he says that economic pressure, if it's meant to change the behavior of the Islamic regime, that's not going to work. However, if the economic pressure, if the strategy and tactic behind the economic pressure is to create conditions similar to what happened prior to the dissolution of the USSR, then in that case, the economic pressure tactic could work, right? But again, it depends on what the strategy is. Now, I'm not the one making the decisions. I'm not there. I mean, I wish I was to know what was going on, but I'm not. So I can't say for sure what the strategy is behind this very recent development to exert greater economic pressure on the Islamic regime. But if I would have to make a guess, I would say, based on what Chris Wright said, where he basically said that the Islamic regime will collapse due to economic pressure, that reminds me of the USSR and the collapse of the USSR.
Absolutely. But they have a losing strategy. At the end, that will lead to the collapse of this regime in Iran as their economy gets strangled.
So, I mean, if I was going to make a guess, I would say perhaps the strategy here when it comes to increasing the economic pressure is to create similar conditions to the collapse of the Soviet Union in the USSR. A couple more super chats, so I will get to those absolutely. Plan B says, Javicha Payande Persia forever. Thank you. It's Payande Iran. The name of our country is Iran. Persia is the Greek word for Iran, the same way that Germany, for example, Germany is the English word for Deutschland, but Germans call their country Deutschland, and we call our country Iran. But thank you. I appreciate the kind words and the sentiment. So yes, Javicha Payande Iran. Thank you, Plan B. Wiley Coyote says, haven't heard much about what is happening inside Iran from you or Tusi. Updates, if you have, would be appreciated. Yes, so Wiley Coyote, I would suggest that you go and take a look at, so just a quick reminder for everyone, those of you who want specific Iran updates, that's what Iran Revolution Live is all about. So yesterday, I had a two-hour live stream where I gave all of the updates on what's happening inside of occupied Iran, and I went in detail on that. So the Goldie Show focuses more on geopolitical analysis and sort of the conflict between the United States and the Islamic regime occupying Iran. And then, of course, Iran Revolution Live focuses specifically on what's happening inside of occupied Iran, the Iranian people's struggle, updates from His Royal Highness Reza Shah II, updates from his comms team, updates from the Durkas, and so we basically go through all of that there. There is like a 30-minute sort of intro, so whenever you watch Iran Revolution Live, guys, make sure if you're watching the replay to just kind of go ahead 30 minutes or so, and then you can get you get to the actual when I start the show. But yeah, Iran, the Goldie Show focuses more on the geopolitical analysis. So there you go. And if there is like breaking news, of course I'll speak about that. But you can get pretty much all the updates from what's happening inside of occupied Iran there. And of course, I do that live stream almost every day. I try to take a break on weekends, but there's just so much news going on. So that's why I'm happy to live stream and share info and give my analysis and updates. So tomorrow I will be doing Iran Revolution Live Day 213. So tomorrow you'll get all the updates from today, and of course tomorrow when I do my live stream tomorrow on Iran. But for everything up until yesterday, it's all there, and I do that, you know, pretty much every day. So yeah, Iran Revolution Live focuses exclusively on what's happening inside of occupied Iran. And guys, that just kind of helps me separate the two, because there's so much content and there's so much happening. And you know, each topic is equally important. So that's why I just split between the two live streams. So there you go. The Goldie Show is more geopolitical analysis. Iran Revolution Live is, of course, all about what's happening inside of occupied Iran. And I just want to say thank you, by the way, Wiley. Thank you so much for caring about the Iranian people. And thank you for giving me an opportunity to promote Iran Revolution Live and speak about that, because that's also very, very important to me. And it's a nice feeling knowing that people care. So thank you so much, Wiley. Okay, next we have Push-Ups. It says USSR collapsed because Reagan got Saudi to lower oil prices. I mean, that definitely part of it, right? So that was part of the economic pressure and the economic plan to have the USSR collapse. But thank you, Push-Ups. That's a very, very good point. Sam Channel says Islamic clerics smell. I mean, yeah, they do. They smell like onion breath and smelly feet, but that's, yeah, they are kind of stinky. Plan B, Payande Iran. Oh, thank you, Payande Iran. God bless America. I'm Israel Chai. Okay, guys, so I wanted to thank all of you for tuning in. Mark Levin is starting in about 5 minutes. Do you think he's going to be speaking about Iran? Guys, should I stick around? I was gonna end the live stream. I don't know if Mark's going to be speaking about Iran or not, but you know what? I'll end the live stream so we can all. He's going to speak about Iran. Okay. I mean, I was going to end the live stream, but should I do like a quick watch party and see? Okay, so I'll tune into Mark Levin. If he's speaking about Iran, I will keep the live stream going. If he's not, then I'll end the live stream. Okay, how about that? How about we do that? Okay. Okay. So no pressure. Eli, no pressure. So guys, Eli apparently is claiming that Mark Levin will speak about Iran. All right. I mean, we'll see, but I don't know. We'll see, guys. Okay.
Our picks for the biggest fails of the week, and I get to go first because I give you all your raccoon news. So officials in Galveston, Texas are telling people not to feed the raccoons the cheese balls. After 7 reported bites, the animals are naturally scared of humans, or they're supposed to be, making them likely to scratch or bite you if you're trying to feed them cheese balls. I know everyone's looking for Jimothy.
The raccoons are really cute.
Don't be feeding the animals the cheese balls. You just don't do it, okay? Just look from afar, respect their personal space.
Have you ever seen the video? You know, raccoons like to clean their food. Have you ever seen the video where they give a raccoon cotton candy next to a stream and it grabs it and it goes to clean it and then it goes away?
No, that's I have seen that video, Joey.
Video.
I've seen it. Did he get a shirt?
Yeah, I got a shirt. I got a shirt with a little crippled up Jimothy on it. I can say that because I'm crippled up. All right, Arkansas high schooler practiced for an hour with a venomous cottonmouth snake just hiding inside his helmet.
Oh my gosh.
Listen, he didn't even know the thing was in there until he felt it move, or I read that the coach saw it maybe through the ear hole.
Oh my gosh.
And so what they did is the animal services took the helmet, dunked it in water to get the snake out. Yeah, man, I'm telling you right now, probably never putting a helmet on again. That would end my football career right there. Woo. Cottonmouth that's
the
bad
war. Oh, that is nightmare.
That's
fuel.
not.
I mean,
you're not guaranteed to live through that. Yeah, that's bad.
Especially in the head.
And how did he not get bit or anything?
You know what?
It's brutal.
Yeah.
All right, I got one for you. This is actually serious. I want to give a shout out to the state of Florida. Gun control not working in Chicago. Listen to this. New report shows there have been more murders in the Windy City this year, way more, than in all the major cities in pro-gun Florida combined. Let me hit you with these numbers. Miami, Orlando, Tampa, 29 total murders through the first half of the year. Chicago, 211. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, they want to blame the surrounding states that have less strict gun laws, but like Florida's a great example because Florida's also surrounded by states that don't have strict gun laws. It comes down to I don't know, law and order, policing.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe it's not the gun's fault all the time.
Yeah, Florida just firing in all cylinders, by the way.
Constitutional carry state. All right, keep it moving on this. So Graham Platter is back. He's booked to headline a Maine Labor Day rally, blindsiding the very nominee who replaced him. It's his first public appearance since he dropped out of the Senate race in disgrace. I wonder if anyone wants him there. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, he's not really doing any favors.
I think they still want him. That's the point here.
Yeah.
They chose him. The
I know,
voters
but like,
chose
does
him.
this help them, you think?
I think that they're probably upset that the person that they voted for is not the person that's going to be in the election. So I think he's still got a lot of support.
He's not perfect, but he didn't have kids with his cousin, unlike Troy Jackson, the guy who replaced him.
Joey gave
Good job, Maine.
full-throated defense to that.
Wait, can we rehash
You can
this?
say
What?
you can say 100 wise things nobody remembers. You say one joke about incest.
You're not helping. I'm a Tennessee guy. You're a Georgia guy. You can't be the one who defends cousin marriage.
I need to know what happened.
It wasn't a.
Why do I feel like I'm watching Dorka TV right now? Like, they're talking about cousin marriage. What? Like, people are elected.
I'm not supportive of cousin.
He said he just understood how it could happen.
Oh, no.
I was trying to give him a chance to clear the air.
Joey's got some hot cousins. He's from Georgia. Just got to give him a pass.
We all have things we're not proud of. And in those Appalachian Mountains, sometimes this has happened. And you hear about it like, oh.
I did not think this is where this was going to go.
This is better. This had better be worth it. If Mark Levin is not speaking about Iran, I'll be very upset, Eli, and all of you guys.
Can't catch us live, but Life, Liberty, and Levin is up next.
Oh my God, that's copyrighted. All right, let's see.
Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin, and this is Life, Liberty, and Levin Saturday. Two great guests. We have Peter Schweitzer and former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. But before we get to them, I want to underscore where the Democratic Socialists of America stand, and I want to underscore why they are so dangerous. But I want to give it a historical context. So let's get started. What do they stand for? Abolish the Electoral College. That, of course, would empower heavily the dark blue states and the metropolitan areas. In other words, it would weight the electoral process toward the Democrats, and 2/3 of the country would be cut out of the process. They want to give D.C. statehood, a city, and Puerto Rico a territory statehood. Why those in particular? Because that would ensure they get 4 more Democrat senators, making it virtually impossible for the Republicans ever to have a majority in the Senate. Open borders, defund ICE, pack the Supreme Court, pack it. So you have an ideological Democrat Supreme Court. That is a Politburo, a Politburo. So you and I and others, Mr. and Mrs. America, you'd have no shot at reversing anything that they do because the court would be theirs too. Medicare for all, which of course would kill Medicare, and all private insurance. All private insurance. Seems pretty radical, doesn't it? A wealth tax. You see this popping up in states, but it's also something that's come up at the federal level. So-called climate change and radical regulation over all aspects of our lives and the economy, the entire private sector.
I mean, this
Free
is
college
relevant.
education, eliminate student loan debt, got the First Amendment to limit free speech during political campaigns, got the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms and so forth and so on. That's quite a radical agenda, don't you think, America? Well, guess what? I just gave you the list of positions that have been taken by the Democrat Party. Even before this Democratic Socialists of America, before those people, those flunkies, even made themselves known in any significant way.
Yeah.
This is the agenda of the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party.
Yeah.
You see, the Democrat Party is a radical party.
They're the ones
In
who
many
brought the
ways,
Islamic
it's an
regime.
alien party that does not embrace constitutionalism. It does not embrace the Declaration. It does not embrace Americanism generally.
That's true.
The Democrat Party gave birth to the Democratic Socialists of America, and there is significant overlap. Significant overlap. Let me explain what I mean. This entire self-identified progressive movement, which I've called American Marxism, started in the 1890s, is and was, as I wrote in Rediscovering Americanism, built on the ideas espoused by Karl Marx, who died in 1883. It adapted many of his ideas to our American system, as I wrote in American Marxism, thereby differentiating it from the more comprehensive and aggressive form of communism we see today. The Democrat Party became the vessel for this movement and its ideology.
Yeah.
It is the progeny of Marxism, but again, tailored for America. And one of its earliest intellectuals was Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson was a professor, a scholar, a president of Princeton. He wrote several key books and essays on the subject, all of which I've read. He was not alone. There was Herbert Crowley and John Dewey and Walter Weil and others. And by the way, ready for this one? There was a prominent Republican who had become influenced by Crowley in particular. His name was Theodore Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt. You may recall, Roosevelt ran for president in 1912 in a new third party he created. It was nicknamed the Bull Moose Party, but the official name of the party was the Progressive Party. And he created that third party after failing to secure the Republican nomination against Howard Taft, which led to the election of Woodrow Wilson. Roosevelt was more of an anomaly among Republicans. The roots of Marxist ideology, again, tailored for the American political and governmental environment, are in fact the roots of the modern day Democrat Party. The battle between the Democratic Socialists of America and the rest of the Democrat Party is not as is being presented to you on television and other formats. It is really a difference between a more purist form of Marxism without the veneer of Americanism. Marxism without the veneer of Americanism. Establishment understandings through decades of experience, language, and marketing, the Democrat Party understands must be shaped to attract voters and donors. Let me put it this way. The DSA is more Trotskyite. The Democrat Party is more Gorbachev. But back to Woodrow Wilson, because he's important in understanding what we're dealing with today. Woodrow Wilson had nothing but contempt for the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Now, respecting the Constitution, he argued that it was written and adopted by individuals who were attempting to enshrine for all time their beliefs, their values, their governing system, their economic system, and imposing it on this nation, America, for the rest of time. He said that the Constitution may have been fine for that time when they wrote it, adopted it, and ratified it. It was written for then, but not today. not for the future, not for modernity. Wilson said, just as the framers were free to create a governing system for our country back then that accommodated the events back then, he said, we're free to do the same today. They can't handcuff us with this Constitution. So Wilson condemned the entire construct of the Constitution. He attacked the idea of federalism, where the states were free to do as they wish, in contravention, he said, of the best interests of the nation as a whole, undermining the common good. Wilson focused his most virulent criticism on separation of powers, which is the heart and soul of our Constitution, which is what makes America what it is today. He argued that, quote, the trouble with the theory of limited and divided government is that government is not a machine, but a living thing. He argued that government is like a body of organs. If each organ is working against the other, rather than in harmony, it cannot survive. This is where the phrase living and breathing document comes from. Living and breathing document. It comes from that. And this is why the radical left and left-wing activists and activist judges and so forth use it as a slogan. It's a living and breathing document. It's living and breathing. So it can be applied to modern times. No. So it can be applied to their economic ideology, their governing ideology, DEI, and whatever else they come up with. Wilson denounced individualism, which, of course, is central to the Declaration and the Constitution. We are the sovereigns. You are the sovereign over yourself. De Tocqueville argued there's a circle of liberty around each human being that must not and cannot be molested by other human beings, by organized governments. Wilson rejects that. The left rejects that. The Bill of Rights is all about protecting you as an individual against this national federal government. So they reject the Constitution. Now, they wave it around all the time when they think it will benefit them. But when it comes to the macro, to their big vision, to their counter-revolution, to the American Revolution, the Constitution stands in the way. In 1887, only 4 years after the death of Marx, 4 years, Wilson wrote an essay titled Socialism and Democracy. And here's what he said in part. It is very clear that in fundamental theory, socialism and democracy are almost, if not quite, one of the same. They both rest upon the absolute right of the community to determine its own destiny and that of its members. Men as communities are supreme over men as individuals. Limits of wisdom and convenience to the public control there may be, limits of principle there are upon strict analysis, none. In other words, he's saying there's no limit to the powers of the collective, of government.
Yeah.
He later says, in the same essay, the germinal conceptions of democracy are as free from all thought of a limitation of public authority as are the corresponding conceptions of socialism. There are no limits to public authority any more than there are limits to socialism. Now, again,
that's terrifying.
Why is this important? Because Wilson is one of the main founding fathers of the modern day Democrat Party. He's one of the main founding fathers of what I call American Marxism, the application of Marxism to Americanism. This is very important, very important. Now, you've heard some of the Democrats say more recently, all the DSA is saying, all they're saying is, you know, they have their views and we need to bring them into a big tent. And they say, and look, it's okay. Look, I'm an FDR Democrat. I'm an FDR Democrat. That's a good thing. Well, let's talk about Franklin Roosevelt in the minutes I have left. Franklin Roosevelt's 1937 Constitution Day address. This was delivered not long after he lost the battle to pack the Supreme Court which is what the Democrats will successfully do if they get the presidency, the House, and the Senate. Back then, the House Democrats in particular stopped the Democrat president. Today's a whole other story. So what did he say in this speech in 1937 after he lost the battle over packing the court? He said, quote, when they considered
the fundamental powers of the new national government, they used generality, implication, and the statement of mere objectives as intentional phrases which flexible statesmanship of the future within the Constitution could adapt to time and circumstance. For instance, the framers used broad and general language capable of meeting evolution and change when they referred to commerce between the states, the taxing power, and the general welfare.
No, they didn't. That's not what the document says, and it's not what the Madison notes demonstrate, they said, during the debates over the Constitution. He's saying, you know, these words, they were very flexible, very general. There was ambiguity, and so the framers intended it that way. So they can't decide whether to trash the framers, trash the Constitution, or rewrite the Constitution and lie about the framers. FDR later said in that speech, for 150 years,
we have had an unending struggle between those who would preserve this original broad concept of the Constitution as a layman's instrument of government, and those who would shrivel the Constitution into a lawyer's contract. You will find no justification in any of the language of the Constitution for delay in the reforms which the mass of the American people now demand.
See, this is typical of the left. When they're not trashing the Constitution outright, they're lying about the Constitution. They're really saying the Constitution's limitation on the power of the socialists or the Marxists, the power-hungry generally are a barrier to what they want to do and how they want to govern. The principles on which the Constitution was drafted are those in the Declaration, from the Enlightenment, the Judeo-Christian value system. They are not principles that age over time, even though they are not newly invented. In fact, the so-called newly invented principles aren't new either. Feudalism, centralism, fascism, communism. The purpose of these principles is to provide borders to protect you, the individual, and the civil society, and our freedom, and our unalienable rights from masterminds and the mob. We as individuals have maximum freedom in a just and consensual society, but government does not have maximum freedom to do as it wishes. One of my favorite quotes is from C.S. Lewis, who wrote the following. Listen to this. Of all tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. It would be better to live under robber barons than under omnipotent moral busybodies. The robber baron's cruelty may sometimes sleep. His cupidity may at some point be satiated. But those who torment us for our own good will torment us without end, for they do so with the approval of their own conscience. You hear that? Bernie Sanders, AOC, you hear it day in and day out. Mondami and so forth. They may be more likely to go to heaven, yet at the same time likelier to make a hell on earth. This very kindness stings with intolerable insults. To be cured, quote unquote, against one's will and cured of states which we may not regard as disease is to be put on a level of those who've not yet reached the age of reason, or those who never will. To be classed with infants, imbeciles, and domestic animals. You're just too stupid to know how to live. But these virtuous types, they know how you should live. That's his point. Point is that even virtue requires boundaries to prevent it from turning into fanaticism or tyranny. And when you hear the communists, the Democratic Socialists of America, and these Democrats, what do they sound like? It's also why the Democrats and the Democratic Socialists of America self-righteously wrap themselves in virtue, as they seek to destroy our republic. It's always said to be for the good of the people, especially the working people. The Democrat Party is the problem. The Democratic Socialists of America, don't get me wrong, they're a problem too. But they were birthed by the Democrat Party, and they have a whole lot in common, even though they may speak differently. I'll be right back.
Need a new mattress but confused by all the choices?
I'm so confused by mattress choices, guys. Please help me out. No, I'm joking. Guys, that was very, very good. And you know, this is why I myself, whenever I speak about you know, what happened to Iran in 1979, I never say that you know, the United States did this. I don't blame the United States. I don't blame Americans. I always specifically say Jimmy Carter and the Democrats, because the Democrats are very, very anti-American, and I agree with everything that Mark Levin is saying there. And actually, guys, so while we're waiting for that to come back, let me play this for you. Guys, communism has been a threat, and you guys need to take this threat very seriously. So sure, Mark Levin is not speaking directly about Iran, but this whole threat of communism, guys, this is why the Shah of Iran, he banned communism in Iran back in the 60s and 70s, because communism is a legitimate threat to Western societies.
The so-called 1953 coup in Iran, a popular theme with the Western mainstream media when making programs on Iran. What are the facts and what are the media myths about the events that happened in Iran in 1953? I am Potkin Azamer, an investigative journalist, with this episode of The Point Is. What happened in Iran in 1953 is often referred to by the Western media as a military coup to topple the democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh and reinstate the Shah of Iran. Let's start by debunking the first myth with facts. Mossadegh was never democratically elected. He was appointed by the Shah, subject to receiving a vote of confidence by the parliament, as it was written in the constitution of Iran at the time. The next frequently repeated myth is that Prime Minister Mossadegh nationalized Iran's oil. He did lead the parliamentary faction for oil nationalization, but in fact nationalizing Iran's oil was approved by the Iranian parliament before Mossadegh became the prime minister, and the Iranian upper chamber, the Senate and the Shah fully endorsed it. Iran's economy during Mossadegh's time was shattered. He had lost popular support and faced impeachment. He decided to preemptively dissolve the parliament and held a referendum riddled with fraud. The Shah issued his dismissal, as was his constitutional right. Mossadegh refused to step down and arrested the general who delivered the Shah's decree. So if there was a coup, it was in fact Mossadegh who tried to seize power by acting illegally against...
Right? So guys, the communists are actually the ones responsible for the 1953 coup.
...the constitution and refusing the Shah's decree. There was a half-baked plot by the Americans and the British to topple Mossadegh, which started on August the 15th, but that failed. 3 days later, sections of the population, alarmed by the Shah's departure, were led by the clergy and some Iranian army.
Right, guys? So this is really important. Everyone who says that the CIA is responsible for the fall of Mossadegh, literally not true. The CIA tried, but they failed. So the CIA saw the threat of communism and they were like, oh no, we have to get rid of the communists, but they failed. They failed. So the CIA tried to do that on August 15 and they failed. Anyways, let's go back to Mark Levin.
Friend Peter Schweitzer, who is the president of the Accountability Institute.
All right, so Mark Levin is just speaking more about like you know, the Democrats and things like that. So but I want to finish this video from Mossadegh. It's about 5 minutes long, and this is why all of you should take the threat of communism very seriously.
Mossadegh, which started on August the 15th, but that failed. 3 days later, sections of the population, alarmed by the Shah's departure, were led by the clergy and some Iranian army officers who came on the streets and toppled Mossadegh. Much of this was a spontaneous uprising. Many were anxious about the growing power of the Soviet-backed communists in Iran.
Right? So guys, people rose up because they were worried about Mossadegh, who was backed by the Soviets. Remember, the USSR created the Tudeh party. The Tudeh party, was he talking about Iran right now?
It has been enormous, and it's having an impact on their economy.
Okay, he is talking
I don't know
about
how
Iran.
much
Okay.
on the leadership, but certainly on their economy.
Thank you.
Can we expect an outcome where they're going to surrender?
I don't think so, Mark. Look, if there were any doubts about that, look back at the strategic pause when President Trump said, we're going to try to negotiate a deal. They had an opportunity to negotiate a deal, and they walked away from it. What they are concerned about is their own survival as a regime. They're not concerned about the people around them. And the other myth that I think has been exposed by all of this, Mark, is that somehow there were factions in the Iranian government. Maybe there are factions, but there's only one that's really speaking at this point, and that is the most fanatical one. So the prospects of going forward are for the United States to essentially precipitate the collapse of the Iranian regime. I'm not advocating. I don't think it should involve boots on the ground. I think this is something that could be handled internally in Iran. But to your point, this is not a regime that is going to at some point say, guess what, we were wrong, or we were on the wrong path. The Americans aren't so bad. That is not going to change. So we need to expect that this is going to come to a head.
Peter Schweitzer, the president has said they lie, and they lie, and they lie some more. They never keep their word. They're never bound by anything they agree to, and so forth and so on. So does that not raise the question of, if we're going to keep this economic pressure on, they're not going to surrender? Well, if we're trying to bring them back to the negotiation table, what's the point of that? If whatever we negotiate, they're not going to honor because they're liars.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. The only thing you can hope for is that there is some internal revolt in Iran. There have been people talking about the fact that there's a lot of tension, for example, between the Revolutionary Guards, which are the ascendant power, which are the most radical power, and then there are people in the regular army that don't quite share that ideology. They really don't have a voice now. They haven't had a voice in a long time. But is it conceivable that the Iranian military might try to get rid of the Revolutionary Guard and replace the government? That's certainly a possibility. And I think that's part of what Trump has been trying to do. Mark, you've talked about this, and it's been reported that, Trump has really focused a lot of the military strikes against the Revolutionary Guards. They've hit the regular military when necessary, the Navy, for example, and air defense system, but they're not going after the heavy Iranian army targets. And I think the theory is maybe those guys want to kick out the Revolutionary Guards. But at the end of the day, I'm kind of where you are. I've been saying this from the beginning. We had the strategic pause. We gave them an opportunity to cut a deal that would have been a reasonable deal, a fair deal, given the correlation of forces between the United States and Iran. And they basically snubbed their nose at us. And that's where we are. And we have made the right decision here because for all the discussion, Mark, of, oil prices are high. Imagine how high the price of oil would be if Iran had nuclear weapons. And they would be twice what they are today. So the strategic choice was correct. Trump, I think, has demonstrated flexibility in hoping for a deal, but it's basically been demonstrated they don't want a deal and they're not going to negotiate one in good faith.
When we come back, then, let me take you to the next step. The likelihood of them surrendering is very low. A deal that they will honor is not low. It's not going to happen. They may enter a deal, but they're not going to honor it. But then there's the third step. Why the hell aren't we training and arming opposition groups? And if they don't exist, helping to create them. I've seen reports that people are looking to overthrow this government. They're collecting bricks and shovels and so forth. No, the Reagan doctrine worked. Can it work here too? That's my question to you when we return. We'll be right back.
Attention homeowners.
Guys, he's talking about the Reagan doctrine. I was literally just speaking about that. And remember, I was speaking about how Reagan used the economy and economic collapse like within the USSR to make the USSR collapse. I literally spoke about that like an hour ago on this live stream. Wow. And then, guys, give me the hashtag Goldie is always right, because look at this, guys. Look at this. So I have been telling you guys for months, right? We've been following the Boom Boom Jihadi Durka bingo sheet for months. And I've been pointing out to you guys that if you see the IRGC box has been boom boomed, but the army side, the Artish side, has not been boom boomed. And this is because President Trump probably is aware that there are certain elements within the within the army who have probably defected, and they're waiting for the right time to rise up. And that's why the boom booms are only happening on the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps side, not the army side. So guys, those of you who have been keeping track of the boom booms on the Boom Boom Durka Jihadi bingo sheet, there you go. What we're seeing happening on what we're seeing on Mark Levin right now, I've been telling you guys this for like 4 or 5 months now. Okay, so this is what I mean. Like, you guys are so much in tune with geopolitics, because whenever I tell you guys something or I share my thoughts or analysis with you, we literally see it in the mainstream media, like, I don't know, a month later or something. So there you go. And what's also really interesting is Mark Levin mentioned the Reagan doctrine, and again, the USSR. And of course, guys, I do want to give a shout out to Eli. So Eli thought he was wrong, but guys, look who came to Eli's rescue. So Stephen Riley said this is only the first segment. Jeff Ashley says, can't say, just came in to show my support and tell you all to watch the Department of War new recruitment ad called On the Shoulders of Giants. Guys, everyone go and watch that. And then, oh gosh, I saw it somewhere here. Eli posted something. I don't see it now, but I shared it. I think Eli wrote like Eli is often right or something. So there you go, guys. All right, Eli. Everyone put an E in the chat for Eli to show their appreciation. There we go. So, all right, Eli, I guess you were right. But I mean, look, listen, the first part was really important as well, and it was relevant because like the threat of communism, that's a real serious threat, and it should be taken seriously. All right, there's a Fox News
Taking a
alert.
live look at Hawaii, where Hurricane Lala is lashing the Big Island with heavy rain, strong winds, and rough surf. The Category 1 storm currently has maximum sustained winds of 75 miles per hour. It's threatening severe flooding, wind damage, mudslides, and dangerous storm surge. Lala could make landfall in the next couple of hours, but its exact path remains uncertain. If it does, it would be the first hurricane to do so in nearly 35 years. And tensions remain high across the Middle East as peace talks between the U.S. and Iran appear stalled. The two also remain at odds over control of the Strait of Hormuz. Tehran says the key waterway cannot be seized with a tweet after President Trump claimed he would soon declare it a U.S. territory. Iran is accused of attacking at least 3 ships in the strait in the last week. I'm Shirley Painter. Now back to Life, Liberty, and Levin.
Someone asked, is Morad Baisi live? He is. I'll have to watch it after.
Welcome back, America. We're here with our friend Peter Schweizer. So just to sum up, the likelihood of them surrendering is very close to nil. The likelihood to them honoring a deal, should they even enter into a deal, which they don't seem willing to do right now, seems to be, to me, almost beside the point, because they're not going to honor it. They haven't honored any deal for half a century. Why would they honor this? And their political / religious ideology doesn't permit it. They exist to kill us. They exist to wipe out the West. That's their ideology. And they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop until they're stopped.
I've literally
and so my
been saying this
question
the
to
entire
you
time.
is this. Why would we not help train and arm opposition groups? There are millions of people there that have a really big grudge that they want to settle. And there's others, millions of them, who do not believe in what this regime is doing, and they want to overthrow this regime. I've never seen a population under circumstances like this that is more willing to put their lives on the line. You don't see it in North Korea, you don't see it in China, you don't see it in other places, but you do see it in Iran, because these are really Western people. And this is really, really, in many ways, a sort of a foreign regime that's imposing its terrorist will on these people. So why aren't we helping them?
Yeah, it's a great question, Mark. We know that when the bombing started, the Iranian government distributed some 750,000 rifles to people on the streets that were sympathetic to the Revolutionary Guards. And they basically told them, if somebody's getting out of line, shoot them. You have full authority to do so. So they have seen the need for this intimidation tactic, and still people are defying them. I think we need to be arming and we need to be organizing the opposition. And we need to keep in mind that these things don't happen spontaneously. The Reagan Doctrine, which you and I both are familiar with and saw how successful it was, things didn't happen spontaneously in Nicaragua or Angola or Laos or wherever it occurred. It happened because we organized it, we armed them, we trained them, we gave them a political voice. We should be doing the same thing in Iran. Now, some of them are people like the Kurds that are regional figures who have long time had opposition to the Iranian government. But there are people that are regular Persians that are part of the normal, majority ethnic leadership in Iran that are also opposed to this regime. So that needs to be the next phase. What we don't want, Mark, is a protracted situation where over the course of months and years, the Iranian government gets to drag this along. Because if we know something about the history of the United States, unfortunately, when it comes to strategy, we get pretty impatient. And you get a new government in there, a new administration, you get a Democrat in there that'll sign a quick deal with the Iranians with no requirements, we're going to end up being in a worse situation than we have been in the past. So this is the next step we need to take. I think it's a logical one. And you are quite right. Iran used to be the most advanced society in that entire region in terms of individual rights, rights for women, the arts and culture. They are now the most regressive because of this alien regime that Ayatollah Khomeini in 1979 created and has been perpetuated by terror ever since. So this is the next step, and I think you're quite right. It's one that is low risk in terms of no direct confrontation, but it gets the job done, which is what we want to happen.
Yeah, I think when we look back on this, people are going to be shaking their heads about it. To me, if we'd started this months ago, we'd be much further ahead in terms of taking out this regime. We'd be much further away from the midterm elections and so forth and so on. Somebody's resisting this. Maybe it's the CIA. Something is resisting this. I don't really care what the Arabs have to say about it or Erdogan has to say about it. We're in the middle of a war and we got to win this thing. And that's the bottom line. Peace doesn't come before victory, period. We need a victory. And the fastest way to get a victory is to use all the tools that we have, all the human resources that we have. And that's one that's just sitting there as far as I know. I want to thank you, Peter Schweitzer, for all you do in exposing corruption, exposing foreign involvement in our government, particularly China, as well as Iran and Qatar. You do a tremendous job for the nation. God bless you, my friend.
Thank you, Mark. Always great to be with you.
We'll be right back.
Okay. Wow. So, couple of thoughts on that. So, whenever like non-Iranians start getting to the whole like ethnicity thing, it's just, it's so frustrating, right? Because they're like, even regular Persians. And I'm like, okay, what about the rest of us? What about the fact that, there are Lors, right? Like everyone always speaks about the Kurds, but what about the Lors? What about the Baluch? What about the Gilak? What about I don't know, Mazandarani? What about the Azerbaijani? Right? Like, guys, there's so many of us. But then like this guy is like, but the regular Persians, okay, that's great. But the guys, so this is just, so the ethnicity thing, it's just super cringe. And it's like, I don't know, how much more do we Iranians have to say that we're all united? But regardless, that's aside from the point, because, Iranian Kurds are very loyal to Iran, but the Kurdish paramilitary groups in Iraq and elsewhere, they're communists. They're literally communists. You don't want them on, like, they're not on your side, okay? The Kurdish terrorist communist groups, remember, they were supposed to protect the Yazidis, and then the Kurds, the Iraqi Kurds, they were like, okay, well, screw the Yazidis. They're not Muslims, so we don't care. And then ISIS went in and, they basically engaged and did the Yazidi genocide. And that's because when the United States said, the United States basically armed the Kurds and said, okay, you guys are going to be responsible for this area. Keep an eye out for all the various minorities. You guys seem normal. You're our allies, blah, 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 whatever. Of course, the Kurdish separatist groups in Iraq, being communists that they are, they basically let ISIS go. And of course, we now know about the Yazidi genocide. So there you go. The enemy of your enemy is not necessarily your friend. However, guys, they almost have it right. So both Mark Levin and Peter, basically, they said that the Islamic regime is a foreign occupying invading force, right? So they're so close to connecting the dots because they literally come out and they said that the Islamic regime is a foreign occupying invading force, and that it's it's Arab, and it's different from Iranian society and Iranian culture. But then they don't connect the dots to say, okay, well, if this is a foreign ideology and a foreign occupying invading force, then they're not Iranian. So then why are they calling it the Iranian regime? Or why are they saying the Iranians, right? So think about that. Like, they're so close to getting it. So I don't know if Mark Levin watches my show or other people do, but basically everything that they just said on Fox News, that's what I've been saying to you guys for the longest time. I've literally been telling you they're an occupying invading force. We call them Tazis, right? Tazi. Tazi means Arab Muslim invader. So the Islamic regime, they're Tazi. And I've been saying that we Iranians, we're Western. And the reason we're Western is because a lot of these concepts that are, within Western society were initially created by Cyrus the Great, the founder of the Persian Empire, 2,500 years ago, right? So the concept of freedom of religion and, banning slavery and equality between men and women and, all this kind of stuff, right? All of these sort of foundational, fundamental concepts that exist in Western society first came about under the Persian Empire almost 3,000 years ago. So yeah, of course, that's why people think Iranians are Western, because Western values and ideals are essentially inspired by Cyrus the Great and the Persian civilization. And of course, it was only when the Durkas took over 1,400 years ago, and then more recently in 1979, with the help of Jimmy Carter and the Democrats, by the way. And again, the Democrats are anti-American. I agree with Mark Levin on that. So yeah, it was only when the Durkas took over that Iran became the Islamic hellhole that it is today. And this is why we Iranians are fighting to free our country. And yeah, very interesting stuff. You know what? Should I go back to Mark Levin? I mean, he's speaking with Mark Pompeo, but Pompeo's actually like he's been, you know, he's one of the people that the MEK paid to speak. So I don't know if I'm not actually interested in having Mark Pompeo. I just don't want to. I don't want to promote Mark Pompeo on my channel. Sorry, guys. I don't think Mark Pompeo is a reliable person or trustworthy, because Mark Pompeo supports the MEK, and the MEK is a Marxist, Islamist, communist organization. I don't know. Someone should tell Mark Levin. So, yeah, we're not going to go to Mark Pompeo. But anyways, guys, so I'm going to leave the live stream there. Eli, thank you. Yeah, Mark Pompeo is MEK funded 100%. So absolutely kind of wild to me that he's actually on a show right now with Mark Levin, where Mark Levin is directly calling out the dangers of you know, communism in American society. And yet he has a paid shill for the MEK on his show right now. So I don't know, man, like, you know, you're so close, like so close to connecting the dots, but it's like it's all right there, and there's just like a few more dots that, you know, people have to connect to get the full picture. But we're getting there, guys. We're getting there. So you know, this is why I have a lot of respect for Mark Levin. He is, you know, he's phenomenal. He's been one of the unwavering voices for the Iranian people. I remember a while ago, I think it was like maybe a week before the United States and Israel started their strikes against the Islamic regime and the humanitarian intervention. Mark Levin had this incredibly moving speech about the Iranian people and our suffering. And I remember I think I was crying. I was crying on that live stream there. So I always have so much time and respect for Mark Levin. And Eli, thank you so much for suggesting that, or telling me that he's going to speak about Iran. You were right. You were right, Eli. There you go. So hashtag Eli is often, almost always right. So there you go. All right, guys, I want to thank all of you for tuning in to tonight's evening edition of the Goldie Show. You guys already know what my analysis is with this war of words and its escalating conflict. And now we're starting to see more of this rhetoric and language. Guys, this was actually really eye-opening for me, because the fact that Mark Levin is now literally calling the Islamic regime a foreign occupying invading force, right? They're so close to connecting the dots. Now, the next step is to stop calling it the Iranians or the Iranian regime. Because if they are a foreign occupying invading force, remember, Khomeini, the Muslim pedophile founder of the Islamic regime, he's from like northern India, right? Like he's an Indian, he's not even Iranian. And Khamenei, he's from Iraq, he's from Iraq, right? And many of them are not even Iranian. In fact, Araqchi, the foreign minister, his last name, Araqchi, it means from Iraq. So there you go. The vast majority of them, not even Iranian anyways. And in fact, guys, Hassan Nasrallah, he spoke fluent Persian, okay? So Hassan Nasrallah, literally like a Lebanese Arab, he spoke fluent Persian, because this is how these Durkas have infiltrated. And hearing him speak fluent Persian is like one of the most chilling things I've ever heard. Like it's actually like blood curdling to hear these Tazis, these Durkas, speak in fluent Persian. But then when they're speaking in fluent Persian, they're basically saying that Iranians have no history and culture and everything is Islam. And I'm like, you idiot, you're literally speaking a language that existed before the invention of your garbage religion. But, anyways, neither here nor there. So there you go, guys. I have a feeling that things are going to be escalating. Let's keep an eye on the news, I guess. And I will be back tomorrow for day 213 of Iran Revolution Live. As always, I'm Goldie Gamari. You've been watching The Goldie Show, and now you guys know. I'll see all of you guys very soon.
Thank you.